Hey guys, Viking 82 here, back with a new Viking Orations. Got another review for you today, and this time I'm going to be talking to you about the forthcoming debut full-length album from the band Dawn of Existence, entitled Ancient Arts, which comes out May 5th through the band themselves. And if you're not familiar with Dawn of Existence, they are a melodic death metal band from somewhere here in the U.S. I didn't really get an exact location of where they are located, but they have been around since 2017, featuring Votan on guitars and synths, Astor on guitars, bass, synths, and vocals. Sorry, I get a little tongue-tied there. And finally, Fernando Lemus on session drums. As I said, this is their debut full-length album. It is 8 tracks, just a little over 38 and a half minutes in length. And honestly, I was unfamiliar with this band until I was actually contacted on Facebook by one of the members to see if I was interested in, possibly checking this album out, maybe giving my thoughts on it. And after spending some time with this thing, I am really impressed with this album, I gotta say. Great guitar work, that's melodic, yet it has that heavy crunch to it with even just a little bit of that HM2 sizzle at times. Mainly mid to fast-paced riffs with a bit of a, gothic metal feel to some of the riffs at times, as well as some more chuggy moments that can be slow and heavy, and just some really great guitar solos with some finger tapping at times. The bass tone on here is nice and thick. It's not too high up in the mix, yet easily heard, laying down a really solid backbone with a bit of a techy, twangy feel to it at times. I thought the drum production was really solid on here. I love the sound of the drums. I think Fernando does a lot of really cool patterns, rolls, and fills, and I especially loved his double bass work and his blast beats. Vocally, you get a really varied performance on this album. You get, from powerful low growls to snarls to these more black metal-esque rasps. At times when you listen to his, the vocal performance on here, it brings to mind like early Amorphous or Germany's Crematory. Even some Peter Tadgren from Hypocrisy moments are found throughout this album. Another big part of this band's sound are the keyboards and the synths, which some will complain about, but not these ones, in my opinion, because, a lot of people complain about when a band has keyboards because they say it's just too pompous or it's too overpowering. But to me, on here, they're never overused. They really don't overpower the other instruments, but always seem to come in at the right time to really create a nice atmosphere or to accentuate a certain section in the song. At times, they are very epic sounding, but it also gives things a bit of a kind of like a gothic feel, a la Nightwish, Epica, bands like that. Good example is the album opener, Marble Garden. Just that opening has that gothic metal feel to it, in my opinion. Some of the other things I picked out while listening to this album, and there was a lot for me to go pick out because there's just so much to this music. Track number 3, Satan Space Lord. The opening to me has a bit of a monomarth feel to it. And that same riff section occurs throughout the track at various points. And then I like the 113 mark. I love that slow riff and that thick bass riff that's accompanying it right underneath, with the keyboards joining finally at the 131 mark to give it this really ethereal atmosphere. You get to track number 4, Mystic Serpent, at 317. I love this section with the thick bass, this kind of drum roll beat, and this really cool keyboard piece with the guitars finally kicking back in at the 332 mark with a nice, slow, heavy riff and a really nice guitar solo at the 346 mark. The keyboards in this particular section have this kind of medieval feel to me, like something you would hear in like an old castle during a feast or something. And that's kind of the vibe I got off of them. Very cool sounding. Track number 5, Skoda, which is probably one of my favorite tracks on this album. To me, it has the most black metalish feel to it at times. It just bursts forth right off the bat with the blast beats, this nasty scream, and a nice tremolo riff. And then about 25 seconds into the song, a very Amon Amarth style riff comes in by itself, no other instruments around. Then soon it's accompanied by a nice slow kick drum beat. Then after just a little bit of a fill, it hits full gear with a nice heavy groovy riff. And I really like the double bass that's accompanying it at this point. It also has a nice creepy keyboard part come in at the 51-second mark. Then at 117, it gets super fast with the blast beats, the tremolos, and these atmospheric keys. And right here, it really gets to sound very black metalish, especially when you get to about the 136 mark. And then at 208, you get a really cool kind of synth solo of sorts, and has a nice heavy as fuck riff right underneath it. Just sounds so badass. And then the last thing here, track number 7, Tides. I love the opening to this song with that heavy, chuggy riff, the bass with that slightly twangy sound to it, and those subtle keyboards right underneath of it. Then when you get to about the 124 mark, I love the keyboards here with the cool double bass pattern that's underneath of it, and that kind of dun dun dun, heavy guitar riff. And the keys appear again about the 439 mark, play that really cool pattern once again during a nice guitar solo. Overall, I think this is a hell of a debut album. There's just so much going on in these songs, and yet they're so well written and executed that I think they flow really nicely. I mean, this album is heavy yet melodic with these epic and gothic flares to it that don't sound contrived or over the top or overstay their welcome. All the instruments on here really get a chance to breathe, and on top of that, you get a very powerful and varied vocal performance. Honestly, I think this is definitely a band to keep an eye on, and I really hope this gets a physical release, because I need to have this CD in my collection. I just think it's so good. I give it a solid 9 out of 10. Go check out Dawn of Existence. I will leave a link down below to their Bandcamp so you can check out the single Marble Garden. I think that's what it's called. Let me double check here. Yes, Marble Garden. Sorry, I had to make sure I had that right. I didn't want to screw that up. But yeah, go check out the single, and yeah, that is going to do it. Solid 9 out of 10 for me. Thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing. And until next time, stay brutal.